We have 2 weeks left. They have to react to last week's results. I don't know if we're going to see a ton of changes. I continue to feel that Notre Dame, Miami seems to be probably the hottest topic. Another topic seems to be if the Big 12 or the ACC, could they possibly get more than one? Could you have a scenario where you could get a Utah in as an at large? Could you get maybe BYU upsets Texas Tech, where you get 2 from the Big 12? The ACC, of course, whoever ends up getting to Charlotte, the winner of that game is in. And you got Miami just kind of hovering. Last week, I think they were at 13. We'll see what the committee thinks of them this week. And you and I continue to say, and everybody continues to say, until Notre Dame and Miami get close enough within a spot or two where the head-to-head would matter. For now, they're, four spots away, 4 or 5 spots away. So it doesn't really come into play. But I know Miami fans want it to come into play. I personally think the only way Miami gets in is they finish 10-2. They beat Pitt, who's coming off a huge win. That would bounce them. I mean, that's it. That would be an impressive win. Mm-hmm. And then they have to get in with Notre Dame. I just don't think it's going to get to a point they're in, Notre Dame's out, or Notre Dame's in, Miami's out. I think Miami's best hope is a lot of things have to happen in order for them to continue to climb, and then for them to have a chance to get in as an at-large. I just think Notre Dame's too far up for Notre Dame to, at the end of this, be 10-2, just based on the rankings. I just think it's going to be hard to imagine Notre Dame being left out.
I agree with you, especially when Notre Dame looks the way Notre Dame looks.
Yeah,
if Notre Dame
nothing into the first quarter,
I think it's like 70-7 at the end of that. If Notre Dame didn't look the way they're looking, then we might have a conversation. But they look, and again, this committee has said the eye test has become important. It's one of those things that is definitely factored in. And I don't know that you could look much better than 70-7. And just for funsies, I went back and looked to see when Miami played Syracuse. And I think the score was like 38-10 or something like that. And so for one of those things, just comparative type of stuff, when you look at like opponents, what did you do against this same opponent?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Notre Dame looks like a really good football team. The gap is in the way of Miami. It just is. They would have to get closer. They would have to get next to Notre Dame, which I just don't. 1 week left. Even if they beat Pitt, I can't see that gap being closed. Notre Dame has Stanford.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's at home or on the road.
I think it's on the road. Doesn't matter.
I'm with you. They got to get in together.
That's the only chance. I don't think it's going to come down to an either or. I think it's either they're both in, or Miami, unfortunately.
For Miami fans, get the either or out of your head.
Yeah.
Just forget about the either or. It's not the question. It's not even on the table.
I think it's more about looking at other conferences, like, with Oregon winning. You have Ohio State, Michigan this week. If Ohio State were to lose that game and Michigan were to win, and then Oregon were to lose to Washington in Seattle, which could happen, Michigan could still end up in Indianapolis and playing in the Big Ten championship. No one's even thinking of Michigan sitting down there at 18. But if they got hot and won that game and Oregon lost, they could find themselves in Indy. So, and if I'm a Miami fan, that's not good.
Not good.
You don't want things like that happening to potentially get a 4th Big Ten team in. So right now you're looking at 3. These are all just, kind of looking at the possibility the way it stands right now. I think it's more about a team like Alabama. You start to look for those at-large teams.
Yes.
Who are the at-large teams that Miami could try to box out? And you're looking at possibly Alabama. You're looking at Oklahoma. You're looking at Oregon. These are all at-large teams that you would, because Group of 5 is a lock. Notre Dame, more than likely, it's hard to imagine. We just talked about Miami getting close enough to bounce them out.
They need Utah to lose. Like, they need all of these 2-loss teams above them That's who they need to lose.
Yeah.
They need Oklahoma to go down. Like
Yeah.
they need Alabama to go down.
To
I don't
Auburn.
even
Yep.
think the one-loss teams are falling behind Miami. So if the one-loss teams lose, I don't think they're falling beyond Miami, who is sitting at 13. I think they would have to get like BYU could. You know what I mean? Like they could fall behind them. But yeah, they need some real live carnage to happen at the top for them to get close.
Yeah, and let's go back to real quick on this. Let's go back to, well, they beat them head to head. So why are we even talking about this? I guess
Mhm.
my question to you on that would be, at what point does head to head not matter? Like if Miami were 6-6 and they beat Notre Dame, should they still be in over Notre Dame because they beat them head to head? Obviously, the answer is no.
Right.
They're 7-5. Should they be then 8-4, 9-3? Like, when do you feel that the head to head should not matter? Like for me, Miami, because I've loved Miami. I mean, I love you and I grew up with Miami being Miami.
Mhm.
I've always loved the Canes, just the way I've been. But I can't help but look at a game against Louisville, who's a decent team. They're heavily favored. It was a competitive game, but they self-destructed. They had
Yes.
4 turnovers in that game. They had 4 interceptions in that game. Like that has to count, right? And then they go to SMU, and they play in a game, again, very close game, played well enough to give themselves a chance to win, but again, found a way to lose a game late. SMU scores in overtime and ends up winning that game. In a game, both those games, you could make a case that Miami should have won and very easily could have won,
Yes.
but self-destructed. And so I guess that what I'm saying is there needs to be a penalty for losing 2 games and self-destructing in a couple of those games against quality opponents. But like when you're weighing this as a committee, I think the optics of how they lost those 2 games
Mhm.
is hard to ignore. And then you want to say, well, they beat Notre Dame head to head, so they have to be better than Notre Dame in a game that they won week 1 and a very competitive, I think it was 27-24, but they
Mhm.
won. At some point, that head to head does not matter. It matters, but it doesn't come into play because
Right.
you have 2 losses that are hard to explain because they're games you were in control of and could have won, and you self-destructed to lose those games. So I think that's the penalty for losing those 2 games. The head to
2
head has
losses.
not come into play.
Yeah, 2 losses that came in a span of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
To unranked teams. Those teams are not ranked. And so when you look
But
at
I think they're pretty good teams. I think especially SMU for me.
okay,
Louisville's okay. SMU is pretty good.
I'm not saying they're not good teams. What I am saying is
They're
they're
ranked.
not ranked.
Right.
And in this world, when we're doing metrics and we talk ranked wins and these kind of things, but that's not really the point to me. At some point in time, a team was better than the other team. In the first 2 weeks of the season, Miami was a better football team than Notre Dame. There's no question they were better. They beat them.
Yep.
They looked better. They played better. Carson Beck was on fire earlier. That doesn't carry you through the season.
Mm-mm.
That doesn't mean that Notre Dame didn't get better and Miami didn't get worse. So as we sit here today and we've been through however many games, you get to this point, it isn't just that you won here and you're just better for the entire season. You were better here. But where are we 8, 9, 10 weeks later after we've now watched you play? And if anybody, including Miami fans, if you watch your team play and watch Notre Dame play, and you can't be honest with yourself and say that is a much better football team than they were in week 1 or week 2? I can't remember which.
Week 1. It was
Week
Sunday night
1.
on that
Absolutely
opening
right.
weekend.
Yep.
Yep.
You're not being honest with yourself if you can't look at this Notre Dame team and say that team is better now than they were when we beat them in week 1. And we, the Miami Hurricanes, aren't quite playing as well as we did early in the season. Now we're starting to
Crank it up.
starting to not look at like the same football team that we did, which in the past weekend when you watched the Miami game, it looked like they were going to blow them out, and then the next thing you know, we have a game. You know what I mean? Like it's like it shouldn't have been, but it then turns into a game, which Miami added a late touchdown with like
About a little over a minute ago.
yeah, they throw a ball comical to get it to 34-17. Not that it just didn't look as impressive.
Yeah.
But it's okay. 2 years in a row, Miami's had their opportunity, and they sort of
well, that's the thing. They've
go.
been right on the cusp, and I think
Right on
that's
the cusp.
probably the frustrating thing. Now we'll see. I mean, there's still 2 weeks to go of games. We'll see if they're able to get to that 10-2 mark. They have a tough game coming up this weekend.